We're live, Video Guys Live. Today's show, I have a special guest, Adam, who does our, come on into the frame, Adam, who does one of our video techs. Today's show, we're going to talk about creating a remote live event, but it wasn't just any live event. We did a Zoom-Mitzvah for my nephew. It was his Bar Mitzvah, and of course people can't get together in temples and stuff, so we did this past Saturday, and we said, how do we do something where we want to have it be not streamed live like on Facebook and YouTube for other people, but we wanted to create an interactive event where people could come in via Zoom and also be able to watch the video of Charlie doing his thing and also be able to participate in it. So Adam, this is Adam Noyes. I'd like to introduce him over here. Adam is one of our video tech guys. He's also got his own little side hustle, AN Productions.
AN Productions, right.
We're going to talk about that a little bit after the show. Instead of a pre-show, we're going to have a post-show because we ran a little late on this show. So want to talk about what we did here because we realized and learned some really cool stuff. You know, if you look at this, if you pull this graphic up full screen for just a moment, if you could, everyone's seen that gallery view. It's boring as anything. Look how many people. We actually had 3 pages of people. So that's 5 by 5, 25, almost 75 people. Clearly kind of unmanageable in the traditional Zoom sense of the word. So what we did is we used Zoom. We produced the video on the TriCaster right here in this very studio. We set it up to look like a temple. We're going to get into that a little bit later. We realized that we could use spotlight view where we could force people to see the view we wanted of who the speaker was. Then we also added some other real important things to be value-added production quality.
To keep people engaged.
So that was lower thirds and different angles. So I want to get started, but before we show you a little video of what we did, I want to have Adam talk a little bit about what was really the secret sauce because we also used NDI to make this whole thing possible. Yes. So talk about that NDI workflow if you could, Adam.
Well, what I did was I took the output from our TriCaster and brought it into Zoom via NDI virtual input. And again, no wires because of that. It was all done via
our
network. And because of that, I was able to pick exactly what I wanted people to see, which in this case was the output, the program output from our TriCaster. So that way I had full control over what people saw in terms of that particular feed.
And then I had a job. Not only was I the uncle participating in the Bar Mitzvah, I was the Zoom remote producer. So I was in my office, which is another part of the building from where we do the show, and I actually took control of the Zoom. So what I had to do was I did the spotlight. I would mute people who were talking. Every now and then put the gallery view on so people could see stuff. And then also, Adam and I were in contact via Teams. And if I saw a show point or something, you know, like maybe an audio level was low or other things like that, I'd give them some stuff. But I tried to let them focus on the show. But I thought we did a pretty good job.
We did.
Pretty good team.
I thought we did.
And then I just want to review the cameras we used. Were the same cameras we use
right now.
Right now. We had the Panasonic CX350 and the new tech PTZ1. This is the PTZ1 camera over here. Okay, so let's go to the next step. And the next step, we're going to actually roll the video. Now, this is just a little 1-minute video we gave you so you can see how this was different than a typical Zoom program.
Welcome to Charlie Matthew Batan's Bar Mitzvah, Zoom Mitzvah.
I have a number of people in my life who are veterans. My great-grandfather Al, who I am named for in Hebrew, Avram Judah, served in the army during World War II. He was stationed in Germany and France.
First, Nicole and I thank you all for attending Charlie's Zoom Mitzvah. We wish we were all together enjoying a typical Long Island mega mitzvah, but alas, COVID. And so we play the hand we're dealt.
Please offer this prayer for peace, Aunt Abby.
May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. Then nation will not threaten, nation and mankind will not again know war.
You did a great job today. We're very proud of you, as we always are. Keep up the good work, and let's hope we all get back to normal one of these days.
Yes, you brought a lot of sun to this day in a dark season, and we're very proud of you.
All right, so the reason I have Adam here is we're actually going to dig in and talk about how we did this. Now, a big part about any production, live stream or television production, is the pre-production, the work you do beforehand. So we broke it down to several points. So talk about the things that we're going to go over now.
Well, we're going to go up over studio setup, set design, virtual sets and graphics, audio, which is really important, and our dress rehearsal.
Cool. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about, and this happened from the dress rehearsal, and
Yes.
that is, you know, I'm used to being on camera because I do this show every week. You do your own shows and stuff from home. Well, people like rabbis and bar mitzvah boys and their parents aren't used to being on camera. And you really have to do good old-fashioned stage stuff. So tell us what we did here.
Well, we had to mark up the floor. We put a bunch of just regular gaff tape down on the floor just to mark and say, all right, this is where you're going to stand. Don't move past this point. Also, we had to mark down where the chairs were because we noticed on the dress rehearsal they're slowly moving the chairs over more and more and more and more, which affected one of our camera views. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it was very important that we did that. And the other thing that we had to do was design the set. Now, we wanted the show to look like it was in a temple, so we had to search for a background that we could find, and we found the ark, or a bema, as they call it in the temple, you know, and what they did is, but we had to do some other stuff. You can see there's a before and after picture here that we can bring up here. Well, we took it into Photoshop, and, you know, we took out the speakers and the stuff like that, but then, Adam, you guys did something even more important that really made the illusion work. Tell us what that was.
Well, we slightly blurred the image a little bit. And I mean very minuscule.
Softened it.
Yes, because what I've come to realize is that that helps create an illusion of depth. And especially when you're in a virtual set like this, depth is important. Because if you're in a virtual set like this, everything kind of looks squished and 2D. And just blurring it out just a little bit, softening it, makes it look like you're actually in a three-dimensional space instead of a two-dimensional.
I thought this was a tremendous little ad that we did, and we're going to do it on our next Video Guys Q&A, you know, tech tips kind of thing, because a lot of times, like we do our virtual set on our show, we know we're looking like an animated drawing. It's a sci-fi thing. We do that on purpose.
Yeah.
But when you want to do a virtual effect where you look like you're really in reality, it's real important to create that illusion of depth of field. And you guys did it so great. And it wasn't until I was actually watching the Zoom-Mitzvah that I realized just how clever that little tweak was.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
All right, so talk a little bit more. We had virtual sets and graphics. Now, one of the things that a lot of people came back to us and said, you know, we really thought you guys were in a temple. But the other thing that the feedback we got from the people who participated in was, it was so cool how you had that lower third. It really felt like it was a real television show.
Right. It's the little things like that that'll keep people also engaged for long periods of time. You know, things like that. And again, these weren't anything complex. You know, they were just typical little lower thirds with some text on it. Nothing crazy. And sometimes the simpler the better in terms of those.
And now, if you could bring this up full screen for a second, we had two lower thirds. We had the lower third about Charlie's Bar Mitzvah, but also he was doing a fundraiser for the Beacon House. So we put, you know, what the URL was there, and we had that coming up because during his little speech that he did talking about, you know, his Torah portion and why this meant a lot to him, he talked about, you know, veterans and their lives and stuff. So this was a cool thing. So anyone who wants to give to that Beacon House, we will be posting that URL on our YouTube and in our blog.
Absolutely.
And also you can just pull it off the video right here. All right, next we want to talk about that other content that you have. Now, anyone who's been to a wedding or a bar mitzvah knows the montage is a big part. You know, you show the baby pictures, the kid growing up, or the couple, you know, through their life and stuff like that. And we did that, but also we realized as we were going on Zoom, people were going to be logging in over a period of, you know, 10 to 15 minutes. You're going to get the bulk of the people at the end. You're going to get some people early.
Yeah.
And I didn't want everyone to be seeing what was going on in the studio while we were practicing or doing stuff. A, I didn't want to put pressure on Charlie, but also it's not really interesting. No. So we came up with Dan, my brother, is a big fan of Fish, and they happened to do a Hebrew song. So we took that song, we put it on there, we put some graphics up there, and it really worked out well, didn't it?
Yeah, and I believe you were telling me, you know, raise and lower the volume whenever you had to speak to someone, or you were telling people to, hey, mute your mic, and hey, we're going to get ready at this time. And again, I was able to do that completely from the TriCaster. These videos were brought in to the TriCaster, so I had complete control over when they started playing, whether or not they were looping or not, when to bring them up, when to bring them down, and so on and so forth. So it worked out great.
And it also gave us fantastic quality. A lot of people like to play a video that's from YouTube while they stream, but the video coming down versus the video coming back up, you never get that great quality. The video of the montage looks spectacular, as if you were, you know, watching on TV. So that was really cool. And audio is a key component. We're going to be talking about audio a lot in the show as we go through, but one of the things that Adam alluded to is in the beginning when we had the pre-show video up there, I was in gallery view. So when I saw we had enough people in there, I was like, you got to lower this. Let's let the people chat a little bit. I wanted to get that out of there because I was going to tell them I was going to put you on all on mute. And another tech tip that I just remembered that we didn't even do in the rehearsal was I had the all mute button in Zoom, which is great.
Yes.
But all mute's very dangerous if you're not the person who's Adam, because the first time I all muted, we lost the studio. I picked it up fast enough, let Adam know it was during the pre-show when we were, what I was talking about, but it meant I couldn't use that really powerful all mute button because I was remote and Adam wouldn't know I did it. So it's a powerful button, but you can't fall in love with it. I had to end up, when people were talking or not muted, I spent half the time, mute.
I think all you did was send me, just hit the unmute button, and I looked, and I was like, oh no, there it is.
Cool. So let's talk about rehearsal and practice. Now, anyone who's doing an event, wedding, a family event, or a bar mitzvah, there's always rehearsals and stuff, but we had to rehearse in the studio. Why? Because this is what we mentioned before. We were dealing with people who are pretty much video newbies, amateurs.
Yes, yeah. And of course, this is where you find out, okay, this is where you need to focus. This is where you sort of set the stage for what's to come. And
we had some audio issues initially.
We did. We had some bad audio issues initially because.
Well, let's set the stage. We're wearing lapels,
right?
But we know what we're doing, and we're standing still, and we're not banging into them, ruffling them. What happened in the dress rehearsal when you put a lapel on a 13-year-old boy and a rabbi who's not used to wearing one?
Oh, they were moving around a lot, and so you get a lot of rustling, you get a lot of crinkling, and a lot of popping and everything like that. And we knew pretty early on that, oh no, this is a mistake. We got to figure out a new way to bring their audio in. And
then we had some challenges in finding the right mic solution that would work because, we tried hanging a boom mic, we tried a different mic, we tried a what was it, a Yeti mic, but it was way too sensitive. So finally we went to an old reliable, if you can pull this up full screen for us. Thank you very much. We went with an old reliable mic that we were using for the shows when we basically, during COVID, the early days of COVID, when I was from my desk, it was a USB, pretty directional mic. And in fact, we knew it was directional because for the first show I did, I had it facing the wrong way.
Right.
But we set it up and talk about that mic placement. You can see, if you see the picture, if we can bring the picture up just again, because I forgot. You can see that the mic was down pretty low and you think like, why would you put a mic so low? And there was a reason for that, wasn't there, Adam?
Well, the biggest one, I remember the biggest one being we need to make sure that we could hear Charlie clearly. Because Charlie spoke softly.
And reading down,
yes,
right?
He was not only doing that, he was looking down if he had to read something. And so he, of course, being, the center of attention here, of course, was our number one priority. But we had to make sure that we can capture everyone else in the room as well. And that might worked perfectly.
It really did. And we had it low, but we had it facing up a little bit. So when Dan, the dad, talked with his big voice, we still picked him up. But the beauty of it is we weren't getting any background noise, either from you working the TriCaster or the Zoom speakers that we're going to talk about shortly.
That mic basically captured everything from where we are and back.
Very cool. All right, so production. Hey, look who that. It's Adam in the picture. We're going to talk about the dress rehearsal, camera angles, continuity between shots, participants interacting with the studio. We're just going to run down some of the things we ran into when we actually got to producing it. So Adam, let's start with the dress rehearsal.
Well, one of the things that you were controlling Teams.
The Zoom, right.
Sorry, you're right.
But it could be Teams.
Zoom. It could be Teams.
Or Google Meets.
Teams, yeah. But you were the one controlling the Zoom. And I remember when we discovered that you could spotlight people was because of all this. And the day of the
Bar Mitzvah.
Yeah,
the
Bar Mitzvah. The Zoom-Mitzvah. That dress rehearsal just before the show went live was really just the
Rabbi and Charlie.
Yeah, the rabbi. That's not the part that I'm having a hard time with. I'm sorry. The finicky stuff, the little minor details and everything like that, making sure that the camera is getting the better angles because as much as you practice, I've always noticed that you're not really going to be ready completely until everyone is there the day of.
Yeah.
And especially in terms of camera placements. And that's what we were.
And it wasn't like we had stand-ins for Charlie and Dan and the rabbi.
And they are considerably shorter than either you or I or even Oliver.
Or Dan, right. Yep. So I want to get back to the spotlight thing, because one of the things I found out with the spotlight when we were doing the rehearsal is you can actually spotlight more than one person with Zoom.
And I didn't know this either.
And neither did I. And I wasn't going to mess with it on the live show. I figured doing spotlight enough was really cool. But what spotlight lets you do as the Zoom presenter is you control what's going to be full screen. You still get the people either on the top or along the side, but it prevented people from being in that gallery noise view. It made Charlie and what we were doing, you know, the highlight of everything. One of the things we talked about before was that we used NDI because we have an NDI studio, but not everyone, you should have it, and we recommend it, NDI is great, but not everyone has NDI, not everyone has a TriCaster. Maybe using vMix, maybe using like a Roland mixer or something else, or, you know, a Blackmagic ATEM or whatever your mixer is. So there are different ways besides NDI that you could bring video from your production mixer into your Zoom call. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, again, we used NDI because we can, but for people who can't, a lot of times they need to get like their camera into a unit or whatever. A couple of ways of doing that is, or from your mixer, a couple of ways to do that is like with the Atomos Connect. That's a really inexpensive little USB device that you just plug into the side. Some people call it a dongle. You plug into the side of your computer and you just plug the HDMI into that, and bam, you can now start using it almost like a webcam.
Shows up as a webcam. Now, there's a lot of these under $100 USB sticks out there, and they work great most of the time for most of the people, but not all the time for all the people. So we love the Connect. It's a good product. We didn't use it because we found that for whatever reason it ran into some issues with some of the different hardware we use in our system. So we are all for these under $100 dongles if you're going to be doing something like once as a try to give it a shot.
Absolutely.
But really, if you're going to be doing this more often and you need something that's bulletproof and more reliable, that's where we go to our old standard, our old favorite, the Epiphan AViO.
Yeah, the AViOs are my favorite. I always know I can rely on them, and I also love how they never overheat. And that's sometimes really important, especially if you get into 4K workflows. I've noticed that if you use the AViO 4K, never overheats. Very important.
Automatic PC Mac.
Yep.
Very easy to use. So a little plug in there. We won't do any product plugs, but definitely our favorite USB, HDMI to USB converter is the AViO.
We use it all the time.
HD. Yep. All right, now I want to talk about something really cool, camera angles, continuity between shots. Now, before we talk about what we did, we're going to roll a little clip. So if you could roll that clip, Oliver.
ותאמר אל עבדיך אם לא ירד אחיכם הקטן איתכם לא תוסיפון לראות קנה.
From his teachers to his rabbi, from his coaches to his counselors, family and friends. It always comes back to the same thing. Charlie is just a really good kid.
All right, so in that shot, you got to see some of the what we were talking about with mixing the shots and having different virtual sets. But you know what I'm thinking is we could actually show people how that works here if we wanted to, right?
I mean, this
so
is
Oliver,
the studio.
Why don't you drop us into the temple? And you can see here's the shot of the two of us with the temple behind it. Now let's cut to this camera and show how the angle changed a little bit. You'll notice here we are, we're still here, continuity. Now, we could have spent 16 days lining this up to get it perfect, but we just wanted the illusion to work. And that is, when you cut back to the full camera, it looks like you're in the same room where you should be.
Exactly.
This is what it's all about. You know, you want to have that continuity of the different looks, because if you had the different look and the background still was exactly the same, people's minds would be like...
They pick up on it. A bit of almost uncanny valley becomes a big deal. And it's just little things like this that makes your viewing experience for an event like this much more enjoyable and much more watchable. You tune in more and you want to tune in more.
I think the most important word you use there, and let's bring back our set now, is, you know, watchable. Little things like continuity mistakes, audio being out of sync, a shadow that just doesn't belong, can really throw off the ability of people to just watch the program. And I think that's one of the reasons why people get Zoom fatigue so much, because we're staring at whatever that webcam gives us, and there's not a lot of whole quality or control over it, and sometimes it just looks god-awful. Now, the next part we're going to go into is talking about participants interacting with the studio. I want to bring up a couple of things. First of all, you can't control when you're on a Zoom. We could control the video we produced. We could control what I was doing in my office. What was happening for all the people attending, that was pure randomness. We didn't know what kind of computer they were using, what kind of camcorder, what kind of bandwidth they had, what kind of other issues were going on. So where you're going to have quality issues when you're bringing in guests, but you want the guests there because it's so important. Now, one of the things we said is, not only is it important to have a guest, we wanted Charlie and the family and the rabbi to kind of be able to interact with the guests.
Yes.
So what'd you do in the studio that I thought was so cool?
Well, I was kind of funny. We had a loop thing going on. I was actually bringing what Gary was controlling on Zoom into the TriCaster. So that way, Charlie and all of them could see who they were actually kind of interacting with. And the solution, because this was actually my biggest worry on there, was how are they going to be able to hear them?
Right.
And I just said, why don't we just
Because
plug
we couldn't put mics in everyone's ears.
we absolutely couldn't do that. So I just said, why don't we just plug in a pair of speakers? And that's how they can hear them. Of course, now that brings up a whole bunch of other issues, which is, one, you could get a little bit of an echo from the people speaking.
Or a lot of it.
Yes. Yes.
Feedback loops, ground hums.
Right. And, one of the bigger ones, though, for me was I didn't want the people here to hear themselves over the speakers.
So how'd you do that?
So what I did is, it's surprisingly simple. In the TriCaster, you go into the mix-minus settings on whichever the audio source is. Yes. And I just made sure to uncheck their own mic, so that way the Zoom people could still hear them and everything like that, but I had a separate audio feed coming into the speakers. So that way they weren't hearing themselves.
Mixed minus is something I think we should talk about in our next Video Guys Q&A show also, because, mixed minus is what I use on the shows when I bring in a remote guest, so that I don't hear myself and he doesn't hear himself. So it sounds like it's this complicated thing, and it is very complicated to know how to do it. But once you know how to do it, it's magic.
Yeah, the complicated part is just remembering, okay, this is what input is that, this is what input is that. But once you get there, it becomes pretty easy peasy after that.
So let's say, let's roll the clip of the proud grandma and grandpa, participating in the ceremony. And hang on to the end of it. It goes a little bit long, but I wanted the people to see at the end, how the rabbi and Charlie interacted with them.
Grandpa.
Our Father in heaven, rock and redeemer of the people Israel, bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shield it with your love. Spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. Oh, there they are. I love it.
Love how they waved, right?
Yeah.
You could tell, and it was really great. So now we're going to hit the recap and the review, because we really hit all the high points of what we did. And I just got to do a couple things. First of all, I got to compliment you, Adam, on doing the job, because you came in extra a little time for that. We really appreciate it. But more than that is we were pushing the envelope. From the very beginning, when we started doing shows during COVID, we talked about how you could do better than Zoom. And this was, we put it to the test. We walked the walk. We talked the talk. We did it. And the show came out great. We're getting compliments from family members all the time. Dan's sending the video off to other people now, and it's really great. But it really worked out great, and we provided a tremendous experience for the family and for the participants. And that's what it's really all about, because it was engaging. People wanted to watch it for an hour and 15 minutes. It was the next best thing to being in Temple.
Absolutely.
So now for the recap, I'm going to kick it over to Adam. And Adam, tell us about your top 3 tips that you learned from doing the first Zoom-Mitzvah that was done from our studio here at Videoguys.
Well, the first one that I had was Spotlight View in Zoom. I had no idea that existed before we started doing this. And ever since I found out that that is a feature, I'm like, oh, I'm in love with it.
Yep.
Because now I, as the producer or as the creator, have now more control over what people can see.
Absolutely. Now, I just want to point out that people can still click on gallery and overrun it. The same way that if you start everyone muted, people can still unmute. So you still, that person who was me, that Zoom kind of producer, you got to be on your toes a little bit, because people will do things that mess up your show.
We kind of talk about this a little bit later, but Zoom is built for that interactivity, as I said. So that didn't surprise me. But the next thing, practice, practice, practice. And I know that's oftentimes easier said than done. But it really does make a difference. Again, having them in for that dress rehearsal, I think like a week before we actually had the event.
Yep.
Let me know, okay, we can't hook a lapel mic up to them.
Right.
Or, okay, they're wobbling around a lot, so we gotta,
the weeble wobble was a big problem.
That was a big problem. So I knew I had to mark
and
up
getting
the
people
floor.
on their marks.
Yep.
because we were dealing with we're not professional talent, but we were dealing with real newbie talent.
Yeah.
And this is people's events. And the other thing about practice, I want to go back to my video guys mantra about everything is your first show is always rough.
It is.
By the fourth one, you get great, because the first ones, you're just trying to get through it. The second or third, one of them is going to go well, one of them is going to blow up, not necessarily in any order. And hopefully from having fixed things and gotten things better, by the fourth time, you really get good at it. Now, we're pretty good at producing shows, but we never did a show before. I guarantee if we do 3 more of these, we're going to become rock stars by the end. And
absolutely.
we did a great job.
Well, you learn as you go. I've always said best, and this is me in school as well, I always learn best by doing.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a prime example of that.
So if you're thinking about streaming as something you want to do, either from your temple, your school, or stuff like that, way to go, you could do it. Now, the next tip is
audio. Audio is, in my humble opinion, audio is now almost more important than video.
Oh, the best way to ruin a video is bad audio.
Bad audio.
Yep.
And again, thanks to that practice, the dress rehearsals, we were able to know, okay, we can't, if we lapel them, we put those mics on them, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to sound terrible. So that's how we hooked up that mic and tested out, because we had one mic that was just picking up literally every little tiny thing in the room.
You would click the keyboard and hear it.
And you'd be able to hear it. So again, audio is just so key, making sure it doesn't feedback, or if there is feedback, because sometimes you can't avoid it in some places, it's very minimal. You try to reduce it as much as possible, but really focus on the audio.
Yeah, it took you a while to get the right audio level on those side speakers. They had to be able to hear it, but it couldn't be too loud. And then getting the Zoom audio to be matched to everything also was a trick, even with the music before and after, for the montage. So great job on that. Now, I want to add a bonus tip, which was at the end of the Bar Mitzvah, I wanted to make sure that the participants got the chance to truly interact. So I was the host, and this is where, as the Zoom guy, I took over the show. So I said, hey, Grandpa, Arnie and Meredith, you talk now. And I had them unmute, and I told everyone else, please stay muted while the people talk. I said, okay, you guys mute the next people. And I got, the grandparents, the uncles, and the aunts. And then I said, okay, now we're going to open it up to whoever wants to talk. And if you hear you're talking and you hear someone else, someone stop talking, try to coach them through it. And we had the usual, someone left their mic on, some chatter, which gives you your Zoom clip moments that you're always going to get. But the most important people got their chance to just speak and tell their story. And it added a level of interactivity. And once again, Charlie and the family and the rabbi were in here listening to everything everyone was saying and able to feed back to them.
I could tell, because again, I was in this room with him, but I could tell Charlie was very thankful for it too. And that's key, especially in an event like this.
Cool. We were going to get to what's coming up next, but there was a part of the show that I didn't talk about. So let's cut to this camera for a second, because I think it's real important. No. And that was, we did ours in a virtual set.
Right.
But you don't have to have a virtual set to do a Zoom-Mitzvah, a Zoom wedding, or another Zoom, life event. You could do it in a temple or a church.
It's just bringing those guests in that people are being careful about.
Correct. So you wouldn't have your virtual set, but you still set up your cameras, you still set up your audio so that people can monitor. Right. The only difference is you wouldn't be in front of a green screen, you'd be in whatever the facility was. But let's remember, a lot of these churches are allowed to have a service. What they're not allowed to do is have a congregation in there.
Yes.
So you could still bring in, if it was a wedding, the bride and groom, maybe the best man and the maid of honor, and the priest, the preacher who's ever doing it, and you could still bring that to the Zoom and have the Zoom be a part of it and allow those guests to participate. So we did it in a virtual set, but you can actually do it in a real house of worship. And the reason I'm saying that is because houses of worship, you can add this to what you're doing, so that even if your states stay under lockdown for 3 or 4 months, or however however long this darn plague lasts, you can be able to do this. But I also think it's something that's going to be important for the future when we're past the world of COVID, because a lot of times we want grandma and grandpa from Arizona to come in, or we have a family who's now living overseas, what have you. Well, with Zoom and modern technology, we can bring them into an event. And using the technology we used, you could have used this technology for a room full of people and just brought 2 or 3 important guests in to be a part of it remotely. You can blend people who are here and people who are there together to make for special moments still. And I think we proved it.
Yeah, this is a tremendous opportunity, for people to finally get some of that connection that they've been missing.
I agree.
Through all of COVID. I know I've been missing it,
I agree completely.
and this has been helping. Stuff like this.
Cool. Let's talk about upcoming shows. Now, Adam, you'll probably be behind the desk for
Yeah,
this.
probably.
We're going to have Video Guys top 10 products for 2020. I'm looking forward to that show. And then on January 5th, we hope to do a show because there's more federal stimulus funding that's about to be approved, getting approved as we speak today. And a lot of that money is going to schools. And they also made it clear that money can go to houses of worship. So we want to talk about, some of the things you could do, because doing remote productions, doing live streaming, when you have to social distance, live streaming makes social distancing possible.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite buzzwords. I say, hey, there it is.
Social distancing
requires live streaming. So,
Right.
Adam, thanks for being on the show, but more importantly, thank you for doing a great job on the Zoom-Mitzvah.
I love doing stuff like this. This is the stuff that I love doing. So this is an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. So today we created a remote live event, putting together studio production gear and AV conferencing software like Zoom. It could be Teams, it could be Google, it could be whatever it could be. What I want to stress is we've done it. We know what we're doing here. If you've got questions about it, we're the guys you should call.
Yep.
We have an 800 number you can call, 800-323-2325. You can talk to Adam, you can talk to Oliver, you can talk to me. You can also email us, and the chat also comes up. So I just want to let people know, we're here as not just to sell you stuff, but we're consultants.
Yes.
And we'll consult and help you put together the system that's right for you, whether you want to do streaming as like your side hustle, or whether you want to do streaming as a house of worship or an event space or what have you. Now, I'm looking at it, looks like we have some people who came in here. So I'm coming over to the side because I'm just trying to read.
Yeah.
I gotcha. John Richardson says, you guys are troopers for streaming during the holiday week. We love the Atomos Ninja V and new blue Titler.
Awesome.
Ninja V.
We love our customers. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the show. Tuesdays at 3 o'clock, we're here. We're not going to be here this Tuesday. We're taking off this one, the one coming, correct? No, wait.
No, we're here.
We're here. We're not taking any off because we're crazy and we're gluttons for punishment. No, we love coming to you guys.
No, that's exactly why, Gary.
we love doing these shows. Adam's behind it. We're going to be hitting you in January with a Video Guys Q&A. Is that what we call it? Video Guys Q&A?
Ask the
Video Guys.
Yeah,
I'm getting the name wrong, and I created the name, so whatever. Oliver and or Adam will be on stage for that show. I know we're going to be talking a lot about the Zoom-Mitzvah and other stuff that we've done. And if you've got questions for that show, being my audience, our audience out there, email them, send them, put them in the Facebook comments or what have you, because we want to answer your questions because we want you to be successfully live streaming and doing all the stuff that we do. So this is Gary and
Adam
saying peace.
Peace. Video Guys is available Monday
And I want
through
you to
Friday.
come back in and we're going to
Give
do a
us a
little
call
bit
at
on Adam's side hustle.
1-800-323-2325. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay connected with all of our updates. And you can like us on Facebook. Keep an eye out for our live videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.